Let's take a look at a few examples reviewing percentages. So this first example says 243 people out of 400 state that they like dogs. What percent is this? So just to review a little bit with percents. People teach percents a lot of different ways. I really like to think about this relationship here. The whole times the percent equals the part. And the key here is this idea of a whole. When we're talking about 10% or 20%, we always have to ask ourselves, 10% of what? 20% of what? Right? What is the whole that we're talking about? Okay. And then if we multiply that whole amount by whatever percent we're looking at, we'll get the part of the whole that is equal to that percent. So we could, if we took this equation right here, and let's say we divided both sides of this equation by the percent. All right, so let's say we divide, a little basic algebra here. No, is that what I want to do? No, that's not what I want to do. I want to divide both sides. We could do that, but that's not the one I wanted to show you. Let's divide both sides by the whole. Okay, so if we divide both sides by the whole, then we get this relationship here, right? The whole would cancel out, that the percent equals the part divided by the whole. Now, you don't have to remember both of these. If you just remember one, you can derive the other one. So in this case, we're trying to find the percent. That means that we need to do the part divided by the whole. So the part of the people that like dogs is 243 out of the whole number of people that we talk to. And so if we divide those on our calculator, 243 divided by 400, we get this decimal, 0.6075. Let's write that down. Now, something to remember here is that every number has three representations: fraction, decimal, and percent. We could take any number, even the number 1, as a fraction is 1 over 1. The decimal is 1.0, say. As a percent, that would be 100%. Every number can be written as a fraction, decimal, and a percent. So here we're given our value as a fraction. We use our calculator to change it to a decimal. Now to change that to a percent, we move our decimal 2 places to the right, and we get 60.75%. Now, this didn't tell us where to round it, so I'm just going to leave it like that. If it told me to round it to the nearest percent, it would be 61%. All right, let's look at the next example. Write each as a percent. All right, so here's another practice of taking numbers and putting them in their different equivalent forms. This should be something that we're good at. Sometimes we need a calculator, sometimes we don't. I am going to say that for part A, you shouldn't need a calculator. 1/4, you should know what percent that is, right? If you do 1 divided by 4 on your calculator, you're going to get 0.25. 1/4, 1/4 is 0.25, which is 25%. All right, how about B? Why don't you pause the video and try B, and then restart the video and see if you have it. All right, well, we're given this one in its decimal form. So to change that to a percent, we're going to move the decimal 2 places, and we're going to get 2%. Now, kind of another cool thing to think about here is place value, right? That's tenths, that's hundredths. So the way I would read this number is 2 hundredths. 2 hundredths. That would be the fraction for it, which we could reduce to 1/50th. But remember, percent means per hundred. So 2 out of 100 is literally 2%. That's what percent means. All right, how about 2.3? This is actually in decimal form. So if we change that to a percent, we're going to move the decimal 2 places, and that's going to be 230%. All right, let's look at one more here. A sales tax in a town is 9.4%. How much tax will you pay on a $140 purchase? So remember, we know the whole times the percent equals the part. Now the purchase here, that's the whole amount that we paid. And we want to know how much we'll pay in tax. That tax is a certain part of the whole amount that you pay. All right, so quite simply, we're going to do the whole times the percent equals the part, which in this case, that part is tax. Now, when you're multiplying something with your calculator, some calculators have a percent button. You want to be careful with those, but generally what you want to do is move the decimal to the left 2 places and write this in its decimal form. And then grab your handy dandy calculator and do 140 times 0.094, and we get 13.16. Now, since this is money, we would round it to 2 decimal places. In this case, we came up with 2 decimal places, so we don't have to round it too much. But if it was 3 decimal places, we would want to round it to 2 to be money. So we have to pay $13.16 in tax. That seems reasonable. Always look at it and say, hey, does that seem reasonable? And in this case, it does. Now remember, 10%, a little quick hint here, 10% of something you find by just moving the decimal 1 place. So 10% would be $14 if you had to pay 10%. So if you go, oh, 9.4% should be a little bit less than that, 13.16, that makes sense.